Hey everyone, Tactics here, continuing my plus 20 dungeon walkthrough series for Season 3 of Dragonflight with the first half of the Dawn of the Infinite Mega Dungeon, Galakrond's Fall. I'll be going over our route that we used here, kind of how we handled the different pulls that we did, some neat skips for you guys, and much more. Plus, later on in the season, I'm also going to be going over some 0.1% title key routes, just to kind of show you the variation once get a month or two into the season, kind of see how routes evolve and what teams are doing on the very high end to time those super high keys. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell. Otherwise, right off the bat here, we do have a pretty massive pull. This is on 1.25 times speed, by the way, so it's going to be a little quick. But basically, I'm going to go through here, and honestly, you probably could group this up a little different. You probably could run down this way and group this up and then go all the way down here. We basically shroud through here, and I'm going to pull this one pack up. It's a little easier because you only need to have one reliable kick on in case this single Chrono Weaver starts casting, and you don't have to be eating all these potential melee hits during the grouping if you start from this way. But obviously it's a little slower to do it this way. But for a regular 20, you don't need to do a pull this big. Basically, you need to keep on top of these tempo slice stops and the interrupts on the Chrono Weavers, and then obviously just making sure you're a little bit spread. You see our rangers spread enough that the other ranged isn't in their Epoch Ripper circle if they get targeted. And other than that, just blast, pop Bloodlust, and make sure you're staying on top of kicks, dispels on the tank if needed, that kind of stuff there. This is bursting too. We have a priest, but there's probably going to be a little bit of chaos here because, yeah, we do it in 2 rounds of bursting here. So not super ideal with the bursting. But like I said here, for your average plus 20 key, you could just group up this stuff on this first platform and do that as your lust pull and then do the next pull. You don't need to do all this in one pull, but was a neat little thing. And we did do that on Fortified too, by the way. So Tyrannical Fortified, you can still do the Giga pull if you wanted. But of course, not necessary to time a 20 key at all. Just something to show off there. This boss, fairly straightforward. There's not a ton to talk about really. We play along one side and we move slowly towards the exit of the room, just so we're over there by the end of the boss fight. We're gonna see we're excuse me, just kind of making a line here with the sand, moving forward here. Leaps, we want to keep them relatively close if possible, just so we don't have to move super far. So you can see like just outside the next leap is where we put the next one, and that makes it super easy to soak. Only one person needs to get in that soak, but it doesn't really deal a ton of damage. Usually it's probably going to be a tank job, but as long as someone is in it, it's fine. And this is just rinse and repeat here for the rest of the fight. Chronos here, make sure you have something popped. And if you have self-healing, you can dump into yourself to help break that healing absorb to get rid of that damage amp. It can be very good for you, but yeah, otherwise, pretty straightforward fight. Not something you need to worry about bloodlusting here, which is why, again, doing a big pull off the top is really nice, because you get to just rip that lust on something where you can actually get a decent amount of value out of it. Moving forward here, let's go to the everyone's favorite trash area. Oh, that's a bit too far here. So here, you want to be careful. I believe we end up pulling 1 leech into the group here, but you're going to see I'm going to avoid leeches as much as humanly possible. Similarly, intervals are a little scary because they trigger on death affixes. I'm not sure if that's intentional. It might get fixed in the future, but currently they do trigger on death affixes. And for those that don't know, intervals are spawned by the big circles. If you overlap any of these yellow mobs here, they will become attackable, that kind of thing. The big scary guys in this area outside of the leech and making sure they're kicked and stopped, and by the way, they melee for magic damage. They did for the PTR, so keep that in mind, tanks. The big scary guy though, these time stream anomalies, Bloom is damage based on your mitigation, and so there are a couple tricks to completely mitigate it, right? That is bubble, like I just did. So Bloom just didn't go out on anyone. If you bubble, if you AMS as a DK, it doesn't go out on anyone either. So some neat little tricks there you can use to kind of prevent those guys from actually absolutely murdering your party. The other thing to keep in mind with them as well is it's always best to dispel the other player that gets targeted by Bloom, because you're going to see here Bloom's going to go out, and actually might be not see it on my frames, but basically it's on the tank and one other player. So Dwarf, obviously very powerful. I think that might have been what happened here. Yeah, Dispel plus Dwarf basically is how we got rid of that one there. So rotating through magic dispels, dwarfs, and preventing the debuffs entirely, very useful here. As you can see that we're just kind of rotating around here. Something to keep in mind is pulling these 2 mobs at the same time, the Anomaly and the Coalesce Time, because Chrono Burst going out is quite scary as well. Like usually we dispel one of those, but you probably will just have to, if you ever pull them at the same time, let Chrono Burst kind of expire, and so you can save your dispel for the Bloom. When that goes out, Bloom is always going to be the priority, I think. But otherwise here, we're just rotating around, avoiding as many leeches as possible, and just clearing the 4 packs here so that we can actually spawn the boss itself. Speaking of, here we go. Let's go to the boss. Getting good repair in. And the game here is basically, as long as you can stay inside the dark areas, you are going to be better off because of that DR, because of that ability to, dodge the actual fragments of time here. So you can see, as from a melee's perspective, what we're doing here, we're basically coming in behind this line of orbs here, and so it's very easy to dodge. We're just rotating around in a circle here. Similar for range, if you stay in the slow areas, it becomes much easier to kind of sidestep these orbs, and just easier to dodge in general there for you as well. Whereas the speed area, obviously coming straight at you, it can be a little bit spooky. Chrono Faded, like a lot of other double magic debuff things, you do tend to want to stagger them on a 20. I think maybe we do like mass dispel one of these sets just because we can, but in general, because of how much damage they do, you'll want to probably like dispel one and then wait and dispel the other. Important, you need to be in the fast zone for these debuffs. You're going to see here, when you're in the fast zone, you get dispelled, boom, it's instant. You take 1 tick of damage and that is it, and then boom, 1 tick of damage, that's it. If it's in the slow zone, people are going to start dying if you don't have like blinks or big dashes to get into the ring, so you don't take many ticks at all. So get in the fast zone for the dispels, be in the slow zone for anything else, just to make it easier to, your damage intake is reduced, your dodging is easier, that kind of thing. Otherwise, fast zone for this stuff here. And again, of course, be careful. Take into account the rotation of the zones as well whenever you're doing things like dispels, whenever you're doing things like trying to dodge orbs, that kind of thing. Otherwise, this fight just kind of repeats. And then we get to do our neat little skip here on the dragon. So the dragon can be skipped in a few ways. Of course, if you just have a group full of dashes, it's a little complicated, whatever. If you have a rogue, you can distract it. But any single group comp can do it, and this is how. Basically, you're going to come here. The RP to spawn the dragon starts like around here. To make it easy, we just don't move when we come here and mount up. And then basically, as long as you all move at around the same time on a mount, you will be able to get there before the boss actually starts. So we move together here. Now the boss is flying in at us. And if we all just hug this way, the boss will do a little RP here, but won't aggro. See, we used a rogue to distract it there. You don't need to do that. You don't have a rogue. If you just all run on a mount at the same time, up those stairs to the right or the left, doesn't really matter. We did the right because it's just further from the path, so just do that. And you can avoid that mob entirely without shroud, without weird jump skips, without invising, anything like that. Just on your mount, just book it together and you're good. So neat little tip there to skip that big dragon, because it's kind of annoying to pull one mob, especially when it's one big mini boss, and especially when there's so much nice countdown here. So post-nerf. This is post-nerf on the dragons, before anyone calls us psycho here. We also have all CDs available, which is why we did this double pull here. So this is, 3-second ticks on the dragon. It's still scary. It's still quite a bit of damage. And you are going to see here, we are prioritizing damage into one of these dragons in particular, just to start to get rid of, half of the damage, essentially, output of this boss fight. Also, we will soothe the high health dragon here from the enrage effects, because we have a rogue. You can only soothe one of them because it has a CD. So he'll soothe the higher health dragon here just to reduce some of the melee damage going out on the tank. And again, could be a good bloodlust pull. We didn't have it at the beginning of this pull, we just got it halfway through. I think we end up saving because it's a Tyran week, and this didn't seem too terribly bad on Tyran week. Doing this on a Fort week, you'd probably want to bloodlust that, and you probably wouldn't want to do back-to-back pulls here like we're doing double dragons. But on Tyran, it was okay. But again, timer's not super tight. This is kind of a situation where, like in the first pull, you didn't need to pull that entire room at the same time. You can go slow in this area as well. Just pull half the pack, then the other half of the pack. And again, here you notice we are focusing one dragon just to get rid of half of the damage ASAP. Moving on to the boss here, though. Fairly straightforward here. We're going to lust in the final phase. But this is actually probably the hardest boss in here, in my experience. Pretty straightforward. This first infusion, you can basically immediately dump it on your tank. Just very quickly, ASAP, dump it on your tank, boom. And this Blight recommends will come out. That's the P1 timing. Immediately, you can give it to your tank. If you are about to push The 80%, note that the debuff will disappear. So you're going to see he kind of chills out here. I don't even know. Maybe he does come in, actually. Yeah, he does come in and give it to me. But assuming you don't have the debuff expire, it's this next one that doesn't come in. Then this is just going to disappear here. No need to transfer it. Boom, it's gone. Then you get into P2. And for this timing, basically, you want the first player who gets it to kind of... You have two options, basically. You can hold it till near the very end of your thing, which is a tick or two into the Necrotic Winds, and then pass it to your tank. That can get a little bit spooky. So instead, what you can do is pass it to your tank at the start of the Necrotic Winds, and then they can pass it to someone at the end of the Necrotic Winds who then passes it immediately back. That is obviously going to make you take a bunch more like initial damage from the passing of the dot there, but it's more safer on the time. So you can see here, we're waiting. I'm grabbing it 2 ticks in to the Necrotic Winds, and you can see the timer here. It's going to be very, very close. I'm just going to eat this here. So basically what you'd want to do to be safe is 1 more second after when I took it. So I think I did it like before the second tick. If you take it right after the second tick of the Necrotic Winds, it's very, very safe on the timer there to actually get eaten there. But as you can see, it's still a little bit close, so something to keep in mind. We're pushing at 50% here, so we're not super worried. I'm just going to take this debuff from him so he's not eating the ticking damage during the winds here, because that's the most dangerous part for a DPS player. And again, you can see how safe that is now. So taking it, 2-3 ticks into the Necrotic Winds, it's a very, very safe single transfer of that dot in this phase. Whereas first phase, you could go immediately. And in this phase, you have to pass actually forever. So, I pick up Lost Colleth. These bosses share health fully. So you can cleave either, ideally stacking them up and cleaving both because they're sharing health here. Main thing is, this fire guy who's stationary is going to bait onto a random player. And so because of this, you don't want range to play too far away from you. And you don't want them to play like too close to any of the puddles either on the ground. So you'll watch here, it doesn't dash too far. And I can simply move over just a little bit here and put this guy on top of him. So with the corrosion here, you're going to generally want to be passing to your tank here. So you see I get passed to there. I'm going to hold for a bit. I'll pass to someone. They'll pass it back to me. But you have a ton of time here, or 24 seconds still. So you have quite a few passes in this final phase. So just keep that in mind. Also note, Necrofrost, well, you can swap to it and kill it. If you have any movement freeing effects, that also breaks it. So Tiger's Lust, as an example, will break Necrofrost. Freedom is what you're going to see me use here. Actually, I think I already did use it, so it's going to be on cooldown for this next one. Yeah, here's the Necrofrost coming out, basically. I'm going to Freedom. Boom. No Necrofrost to deal with. Easy. So good pally tech there. Again, Tiger's Lust, anything like that, movement freeing stuff, completely clears that, so that's nice. Otherwise, we lusted here, we're stacked here, we're nuking these bosses here, and again, as a tank, try and hold on to this as much as you can here. He's passing it to me, and this would be enough here for the frontal, I believe. Maybe we did it like 1 second too early. What happens here is we accidentally pass it one person. That's what happens. So boss is almost dead here, so it's really not a big deal. We don't get to clear here. Don't hard tunnel clears, especially if you're near the end of a phase or near the end of the fight. If you have to miss a clear, it's not the end of the world, especially if it's only for a few seconds. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, with our count here, as you can see, we're just going to skip this whole end area because, again, I find it so much more efficient to just pull the beginning of the dungeon in a pull or two rather than pull a bunch of stuff back here. So that's why we do that. We're shrouding all the way through here. And this last pack alone is all the count we need. And you'll notice here, I am going to pull it back on top of the boss to about here. This is where, boom, active, the RP has started. So now we're going to kill this pack during the RP, and that's going to save us a bunch of time as well. So you're not losing time waiting here because we still have to kill one pack. And notably here, as I mentioned, we pulled 1 extra leech by accident. So you would still have count even if you pulled absolutely 0 extra leeches in that second area room. So keep that in mind as well. This is a super easy pull though, just keep kicks in the creation, don't spread the Epoch Ripper stuff, sorry. And, kick the Chronokar Weaver. Go into the boss, though. Boom. There we go. And you're going to see a little bit of tech here to help drastically reduce damage. So the Extinction Blast, once it actually has started casting, you can use combat drops to avoid the damage entirely. So boom, he actually vanished instantly there. Maybe a little bit hard to see, but in future ones you'll be able to see. And what that does basically is that massive scary dot that goes out when on the one target of that ability, gone. Don't have to worry about it whatsoever. And that was really the most lethal part of this fight, I think, assuming you don't get hit by the pillars coming out in the next phase from the Earth Surge, is just the one player who gets the dot and then also has to sit in the soak. Very, very scary. You would external them, personal them, whatever. But, if you're a Night Elf, if you're a Mage Hunter Rogue, you can just completely avoid that damage. I can also spell warding the target, which I believe you'll see me do. When our Priest gets that debuff, I will just spell warding him. He won't get the magic dot on him. Very, very useful there. But that is like the big tech on this boss. So Night Elves getting, a decent amount of value here. And throughout the season, honestly, Night Elves are looking very, very good with Shadow Meld. But from here, the fight is pretty straightforward. Obviously, anything you can use that does extra damage to shields, potentially a talent tech here for that. Tanks, be aware of how many stacks you're getting. If you don't get a lot of avoids, you get unlucky on a bunch of hits in a row, start stacking up, particularly after you break the Earth Surge shield is the most likely time for this debuff to start kind of stacking up on you too much if you don't get avoids. I'm getting kind of lucky here on these autos. I've avoided like 3 in a row now. Keep that in mind. We have a direction called out for when this cone comes. So you can see we were stacked together. We're always going to move to the left here. Group these adds up relatively easily. So that's nice. And so now you're going to, there it is. Now it's stacking up a little bit too. And basically if you don't get an avoid in here, it's just going to stack up super high. So I got lucky there on 3. I got an avoid. Now it's stacking up again. But if you just didn't avoid that 1, right, I'd be at like 6, 7, or 8 now, right? So something to keep in mind. If you get unlucky, right, like I am right now, I'm at 5 stacks. There, I got lucky with that one. If you get unlucky, you can take a lot of damage from autos here before this Extinction Blast cast. And so keep that in mind. It can get very, very dangerous between the frontal and the Extinction Blast. So that's where you would potentially want to use CDs if you get unlucky. Again, there's a mage, so we're just going to Greater Invis. And boom, no damage. Much clearer there. As long as the cast has started, you're good to use your combat drop. And otherwise, the fight gets pretty easy here. Once the boss starts getting to very high energy, we're just going to hold CDs a little bit and pop them just to guarantee that kill in the last phase with the big damage amp. Otherwise, again, not too much really to talk about with this fight. That's the one kind of big tech we have. So that kind of wraps up this plus 20 walkthrough video. Hopefully you found it useful. And if you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like it, including walkthroughs just like this one for every single Season 3 dungeon. I've got Mythic Raid Boss guides as well. And of course, whenever War Within beta drops, I'm going to be covering that as well. So, make sure you do stick around for that stuff. If you have any questions about this dungeon, feel free to leave those down in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer. Plus, make sure you do stop by my Twitch channel at Tactics as well. I stream all of my Mythic Plus keys, my Mythic Raid progression as well from a tank's perspective. So if that's what you're looking for, come say hi. Of course, shout out to all of my subscribers over on Patreon. Could not do this without you guys. Otherwise, thanks everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.